These two women and their families have lost virtually everything. A few months ago, their husbands were well-paid, well-respected military officers representing Turkey at NATO headquarters in Brussels. Now, they're in hiding from that government, accused of being terrorists. We have to disguise their identities because they fear retaliation.
I never imagined that could happen to us. We've even told our children not to speak Turkish in public anymore.
A couple months after the failed military coup, they were ordered to return to Turkey, accused of having links to those who tried to overthrow President Recep Tayyip Erdogan.
Of course, it was shocking. I got angry. At first, we wanted to go back to Turkey. I wanted to defend myself. But there is no case to defend myself against. And then we learned that the people who did go back were jailed.
We meet them and others caught up in the purge at an apartment near NATO. They're among the tens of thousands of military personnel, teachers, and civil servants sacked by President Erdogan's government. One of them is a high-ranking military officer accused of helping to plan the coup from his NATO post. He tells us he had nothing to do with it.
I condemned the coup. I'm not afraid to be legally pursued or even tried. If there could be a credible legal system in Turkey, I would never hesitate to go back to my country. But unfortunately, that's not the case.
The officer believes a witch hunt is taking place in Turkey, a witch hunt for well-educated, liberal-minded people.
They tweaked the legislative system in Turkey and invented new crimes to be able to discharge people from their offices, to imprison people, even to torture people in their custody or in prison.
Asked for reaction to these cases, many think tanks and NGOs are reluctant to criticize the Turkish government in public, worried for their own personnel there. Only Amnesty International's Andrew Gardner in Istanbul was willing to talk. He says he's never known a time when criticism of a government has been so muted, while its human rights violations are so extreme.
There were videos, there were photographs from inside police detention, but most importantly for us, there was testimony from lawyers who've actually met with people in detention and doctors as well. And unfortunately, they gave a very disturbing picture of ill treatment and torture inside police detention in Turkey. And unfortunately, to an extent, that's continuing till today.
Erdogan has declared that diplomats posted abroad whose names are on his list must return home, or he'll hunt them down and bring them back forcefully. That's exactly what the families in Brussels now fear. Their salaries and benefits were cut off months ago. They've changed neighborhoods and schools.
We don't have anything now. No state, no passport. It's like a prison, only outside.
It's like a paused life.
You think it's just a pause, not an end?
We're all alive and with our families. We've applied for asylum. We'll start over.
But Turkey has already warned NATO member states, including Belgium, they must send these officers back. When we asked NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg about the situation, he defends Turkey's utility as a partner.
Turkey is also important for the migrant and the refugee crisis and a buffer for the rest of Europe. And I think it's very important that the rest of Europe understands the important role Turkey is playing in managing the migrant and refugee crisis.
Belgian authorities wouldn't respond to questions about whether they'll grant asylum to the Turkish citizens. Stakes are high. Erdogan has threatened to quit his refugee deal with the EU if it angers him. A foreign policy analyst in Brussels dares to speak up.
He cannot expect democracies with the rule of law to deliver these people to Turkey in this situation. And I think we should play hardball on this one. We must make it clear that we're not going to betray the basic principles upon which our liberal democracies are founded for a refugee deal. If that is the trade-off, then too bad.
The women say they are afraid their asylum request will be rejected. If so, they'll try to go somewhere else.
It's a big world with a lot of countries. There must be one that will take us.
Meanwhile, the women are constantly learning of new cases just like theirs. Families forced into hiding, wondering if the lists will ever end.